Good morning. Today I present the cultural negotiation profile of China, focusing on how deeply integrated cultural elements shape negotiation behavior and outcomes, and how a negotiator can use cultural insight to enhance effectiveness. China's international negotiation environment remains central to global business. In early 2026, news reports highlighted that China invited more than 70 chief executives from around the world to a major economic forum in Beijing, positioning the country as a stable destination for investment amid global uncertainty. Even as geopolitical tensions persist with partners such as Japan and the United States, illustrating the central role of China in global economic relations and the high stakes of negotiation interplay. China's national culture is shaped by Confucian philosophical traditions that prioritize collective harmony, respect for hierarchy, and social obligation. Confucian values underpin social behavior and organizational norms, promoting relational interdependence and consensus building rather than unilateral action. These values inform negotiation dynamics by shaping expectations around respect, hierarchy, and reciprocal obligation, and negotiators who fail to understand this foundation's risk, misreading intentions, or violating implicit cultural rules. One of the most influential cultural frameworks in Chinese negotiation is Guanxi, or relationship networks. Guanxi extends beyond mere networking. It reflects a system of interpersonal obligation and mutual trust that often predates formal business agreements. In negotiation, Guanxi functions as social capital, facilitating smoother information exchange, reducing uncertainty, and enabling long-term collaboration. Negotiators from Western contexts will contrast the often preset relationships may find Chinese counterparts approach negotiation as a relation process that must first establish trust before substantive terms are discussed. Closely related to Guanxi is Mianzi or faith, which represents personal and organizational reputation, dignity, and honor. Preserving means during negotiation influences communication style and behavior, deterring public criticism, direct confrontation, or messages delivered in ways perceived as disrespectful or humiliating. High context communication is common in China, meaning that negotiation messages must rely on implicit truths and interpretation rather than explicit statements. And silence during negotiation, for example, is frequently a strategic path reflecting contemplation rather than indecision or weakness. Researchers highlight that cultural intelligence, the ability to interpret and adapt to culturally diverse environments, predicts negotiation success in Chinese context because it allows negotiators to read nonverbal signals, recognize hierarchical truths, and calibrate strategy in real time. This finding aligns with cost theory on individual difference in negotiation, which emphasizes the role of self-efficacy and empathy in cross-cultural contexts. Recent academic studies also emphasize power distance in Chinese culture. Negotiation teams must identify and defer to senior decision makers because decisions are typically made through group consultations that respect hierarchy of the orator. Institutional and political context also influences negotiation behavior. China's government remains the center actor in economic planning and trade negotiations, and recent international negotiation news highlights this reality. In 2025, the United States and China reached a framework agreement on issues related to digital platforms after extended bilateral negotiation, demonstrating that the political negotiation strategies must adapt to cultural and institutional expectations on both sides. Moreover, Sino-Australian trade negotiations have shown that differing cultural orientations regarding power distance, uncertainty avoidance, and communicative style require careful management, particularly in complex sectors such as aero or trade. Effective negotiation with Chinese counterparts requires tailored strategies. First, Relationship building must be prioritized, allocating time for informal interactions, meals, and extend dialogue signals. Respect, foster trust, and build 关系, which later functions as durable social capitals in negotiation. Relationship building should not be treated as preparatory but as a co-preparatory phase of negotiation. Second, negotiators should approach communications with sensitive to high context norms and means. Active listening, observance of nonverbal cues, and deliberate pacing signal respect and reduce the risk of face loss, while direct confrontation or aggressive bargaining may damage reports. Third, negotiation approaches should be integrated, seeking win-win outcomes that preserve relationships and future collaborations, reflecting the emphasis on harmony in confusion values. Fourth, careful preparation is essential. Negotiators should prepare evidence-based proposal with robust data, clear logic, and risk assessments. Detailed preparation aligns with the Chinese preference for cautious, deliberative decision-making that propels organizational reputation and reduces uncertainty. Negotiators should also map internal hierarchies and decision pathways within Chinese organizations to identify real decision makers and tailor the engagement strategies accordingly. Fifth, cultural intelligence training enhances negotiation effectiveness by developing adaptive skills, including reading implied traits and adjusting negotiation behavior in real time. In pre-K, research indicates that negotiators with high cultural intelligence performance outperform those with solely transaction negotiation preparation in cross-cultural contexts such as China. For example, a negotiation between an Australian infrastructure firm and Chinese project partners would begin by building a 关系 through repeated face-to-face meetings and shared activities, introducing substantive agenda and items gradually. Communication would intentionally be respectful, employing indirect language and passes to allow reflection. Proposals would integrate detailed performance forecasts and risk mitigation measures, demonstrating long-term commitment rather than short-term advantage. Finally, negotiators would allocate time for internal consultation cycles, recognizing that Chinese contacts may require multi-rounds of discussion before consensus is reached. This multifaceted strategy respects cultural norms while positioning the negotiation for outcome success and sustainability partnership. In conclusion, negotiating with Chinese counterparts requires deep cultural understanding, careful communication collaboration, strategic relation building, and adaptive negotiating tactics that align with Confucian-derived norms such as 关系 and 面子. By integrating cultural intelligence and leveraging comprehensive preparation, negotiators can enhance effectiveness and achieve outcomes that are both commercially sound and culturally respectable. Recognizing and responding to these cultural norms not only facilitates negotiation success but also fosters enduring business relationships in the complex and dynamic environment of Chinese international negotiation. That's all. Thanks for your listening.